Why shouldn't you invest into whiskey? So in recent weeks, I've been seeing a lot of whiskey investing adverts online, and I'm going to tell you why you probably shouldn't invest into this asset class. Now, before doing that, go over to infuriated.com, especially if you're an expat or a high net wealth individual, and see how I can help you, and indeed have helped people like you in the past. Now, that leads me on to something, because whiskey is a high net worth asset. In other words, it's not something for the retail market, at least most of these kind of whiskey investments I've seen online. There's nothing wrong with that, and there's nothing wrong with unregulated investments, provided you understand the risk and so on and so forth. However, the first reason you probably shouldn't invest into whiskey is that most of these investments are a 5 or 10 year commitment, whereas some alternative investments are a 1 or 2 year commitment with comparable levels of risk and return. That's the first thing. Number two, when it comes to something like a lot of these whiskey investments, there isn't a lot of transparency about the full investment process, even if it might appear to be the case that there is transparency. So in reality, there's a lot of things that could go wrong, along the way. Thirdly, in the last 10 or 20 years, it's true to say there's been a big appreciation in the price of whiskey, like fine wines, but a lot of those processes that have, or trend should I say, won't continue forever, because what we've seen a big demand from China and India and other countries for fine wines and fine whiskies. However, a lot of the things you're seeing online just won't be sustainable long term. In other words, let's say if the price of some whiskey has gone up by 20 or 30% per year, that's not going to happen forever, because if you look very, very long term, like 100 or 200 years, wine or whiskey has not outperformed the S&P 500 or other major stock markets. And if you think about it, how can it? Because the stock market is based on innovation, right? In terms of Apple today makes the Model T and Ford 100 years ago look like something from another dinosaur era. Likewise, the companies that will exist in 50 years, whoever they are, using AI and new technology, will make companies today look like dinosaurs. So there's always innovation, there's always Darwinianism. Whereas when it comes to something like whiskey or wine, there's only so much whiskey and wine that can be produced. Yes, the global population is going up, although it's not going to go up forever, it seems, and demand's going up. But you can always produce more whiskey and wine, so it's not based on innovation, right? A fine whiskey that's done well in the last 10 years is not based on innovation. If you think about it, whiskey that's selling more today, the same whiskey, than 10 years ago, that's just hoping that the same trend will carry on, which is a speculation. Let me give you a comparison. Let's say you've got two investors. They both invest into real estate. Investor one is getting a 10% rental yield and is using leverage to make their money. They don't care about capital appreciation. Investor two, in comparison, is buying the house to flip the house. In other words, he or she doesn't care about the yield or using leverage in a smart way. They just want to flip the house. Investor one is an investor. Investor two is a speculator, because that investor is just hoping that somebody else will pay more for the same product or service later on, in this case, a house. And likewise, some of these whiskey projects are not based on trying to create cash flow, like creating a whiskey business or tourism or something like that. That's not a speculation. In comparison, a lot of these whiskey businesses are just hoping that the price will go up and they can pay a fixed yield to investors, and that's a speculation. It's not like real estate, where there's something like a cash flow generating machine. In comparison, there are a few people who might want to invest into whiskey. Let's say this is your industry. Obviously, if you know it inside out, that's different. And likewise, if it's a whiskey project which is linked to, for example, cash flow, like tourism, which is going to, generate money from, whiskey samples and things like that, I'd be much more comfortable with that. But just hoping that a bottle of whiskey is going to go up in the next 10 or 20 years because it has previously is not a good reason to invest.
Depends on every person's individual goals, how much money they want to invest, how long they want to invest. And I did not have at all the feeling from any bank with which I had contact with, that they were interested in these things. Whereas with you, it was from the very beginning obvious to me that you had experience in these matters and also were interested in what I wanted to achieve.
Anyways, I'm very, very pleased and positive to say that I believe I've picked the right one. The results in the last couple of years have overreached my expectations by far, and I see no reason why it should not continue. Of course, I can highly recommend him as your financial advisor for now and for the future, because hesitating is missing out.
So I'm investing a lot in the Middle East market, but the amount of returns I'm getting from there is very low as per the amount of returns I'm getting from the investment portfolio which you made for me. Obviously, the best result in market right now is Adam.